I've seen theories that Boo is Violet from The Incredibles before, but I disagree with that because, well, they look different and are clearly a different person. I've read the Pixar theory so many times, it is almost like a second language to me. And I've always wanted to add to it and make an input to it, but I've never ever had anything good enough. Until today. So the other day I was watching Monsters Inc. and there were some things that really bothered me about Boo. Firstly, why does she have a Jessie doll? Everyone knows Jessie dolls went out of fashion in like 1957. And she was born in like the late 90s, early 2000s. Also... How does she know how to teleport? And finally, Boo is gone from her home and lost in the monster world for about a day. So how absent-minded were her parents that they didn't even make a big deal about the fact she disappeared? Wouldn't they assume she'd been kidnapped or something, and then her bedroom's turned into a crime scene? But literally, this is her bedroom when she first runs into Sully, and this is her bedroom when she's returned home. Like, other than the fact they're from a different angle, have different lighting, and second picture is 10 times better quality than the first. There's literally no difference in her room the day before she entered the monster world and the day after she entered the monster world. Well, other than the fact the toys have moved around a bit, but we all know in Pixar films, toys have a mind of their own. Okay, we are going to go back to the fact Boo has the ability to teleport. Like, seriously, he puts her down in her bed, does a load of stuff, Randall does some stuff, and then a few minutes later, she appears on his back. Okay? This is a sign. She knows how to teleport. She has a superpower. Okay, you've taken this too far. They are just trying to create some comical relief from the audience. They're not trying to say that Boo has a superpower. To be fair, I can see where this argument's coming from. It's a kid's film. They're trying to create some cheap laughs for the kids. And I'd say fair enough. If the fact she could teleport wasn't so pivotal to the plot. You see, if Boo didn't know how to teleport, she'd have never got into the monster world, so none of the events of Monsters Inc. would have occurred. Like, on a real note, any normal child would be so scared of Sully, they would not dare get out of their bed and go up to him. They definitely wouldn't be teleporting themselves onto his back. But Boo is no normal child. She is a super. Need more proof? Well, the witch from Brave knows how to teleport.
I don't understand. See anything you like?
Us Pixar theorists believe Boo and the witch from Brave are the same character, but you know, that's a completely different theory. And she's obviously much more in control of her powers by then.
You're a witch! Woodcarver! That's why the wisps led me here! Woodcarver! You'll change my fate! Woodcarver!
And this would help explain so much in how the witch from Brave, or Boo, was able to discover the ability to time travel. Because time travel, in its essence, is just teleporting from one time period to another. And who more likely to discover that ability than a super with the ability to teleport? Like, teleporting is literally in her nature.
Wood cannot be imbued with magical properties. I should know.
Also, back to Monsters Inc., this would explain why there was no commotion from her parents about her disappearing. She probably teleports out her room and disappears at night all the time. Well, you know, at least often enough for this not to be a big deal. And well, if she's a super, her parents must be super too. And supers are the last people that would be calling the police because, well, anything the police can do, they could do better. They're superheroes, for God's sake. So, Boo's a super. Agreed? I hope so, because, well, this theory is going to get a lot more speculative from now. If you've read the Pixar Theory book, which I highly recommend, #not-sponsored, it goes into a lot of detail on how the Incredibles got their powers. And to scratch the surface, it simply says the supers were created by the government to fight crime. And if two supers get busy, if you know what I mean, they produce a super baby. Hence, why Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl, two supers, produced super children. But what about Boo? From what we know about The Incredibles is that it takes place in the late 1960s. 1968 specifically, I think. And Boo was born in the late 90s, early 2000s. So for Boo to be a child of one of the original supers who we've got to presume were born in the 1920s, seems a little extreme. But then again, what do we know about what supers get up to in their 80s? And the only young supers that we know of are Dash, Violet, and Jack-Jack. And I think by Syndrome's surprised reaction to the fact they have superpowers tells you enough that they are probably the only young generation of supers. So I think we have reason to believe that one of Boo's parents is one of Violet, Dash, or Jack-Jack. Now, age-wise, you'd think Jack-Jack would be the best fit, because Jack-Jack would be in his mid-30s when Boo's born, so that kind of fits well because that's a common age to have kids. But this is wrong. And I have evidence to prove that Violet is in fact Boo's mother. Firstly, Boo's real name, in the human world at least, is Mary Gibbs. Conveniently named after the actress who played Boo. Which completely cancels out the possibility it could be Dash or Jack-Jack because, well, their surname is Parr. You idiot! Violet's surname is Parr too. Yes, but if Violet gets married, her surname could well change to, well, you know, Gibbs. Well, you know, unless the rumours about Dash being the villain in The Incredibles 2 turn out to be true. And he goes all Kylo Ren and decides to change his name and everything. But even in that case, is Gibbs really a good villain name? The second piece of evidence is the fact Boo has a Jessie doll. It is made clear in Toy Story 2 that no one wanted cowboy dolls after Sputnik.
Once the astronauts went up, children only wanted to play with space toys. I know how that feels.
And you'd assume if no one wanted them, they would have stopped being sold. Therefore, you have to assume that Boo's Jessie doll is a hand-me-down from one of her parents. By the time Jack-Jack was born, I'm assuming about 1967, there wouldn't be cowboy dolls selling on the shelves of stores. And I feel like Dash is more likely to own like a race car toy than a Jessie doll. I feel like he might have been obsessed with speed as a kid for some reason. But who more likely than Violet, a girl born in the early 50s, obsessed about wanting to be normal, to own a Jessie cowboy doll and then go and hand it down to her kid who turns out to be Boo from Monsters Inc. This does just leave one leering question though. Who is this Gibbs guy? Well, what we know about him so far is that he's super, and well, that's it. Well, other than the fact he's probably white with brown eyes. Just because, you know, genetics. And I have looked and searched for a super under the name Gibbs. I have watched that scene where Mr. Incredible goes through the list of supers killed by Syndrome's genocidal run, and there is not one super called Gibbs. Well, you know, at least that we know of. It doesn't actually give you any of their real names, it just said their superhero alter ego, so there's still a possibility, I guess. But on the bright side, I learnt about the Phasmatics, the supers focused on international threats, and then the Thrilling Three, the supers focused on national threats. I was about to give up. And then I found a super who goes by the name of Blazestone, whose powers were the exact same as Frozone's, well, you know, except with fire. So cool. Which kind of made me think her and Frozone were perfect for each other because, you know, opposites attract. And as I kept reading, I found out that Frozone actually was in love with Blazestone. But unfortunately for him, so was another super named Downburst. And obviously Frozone's married to someone called Honey now, so he's obviously moved on.
We are talking about the greater good!
Greater good? I am your wife. I'm the greatest good you are ever gonna get.
And here's what the article says. Frozone and Downburst competed for her affections in a super love triangle. Since Frozone ultimately married another woman, it is possible Downburst won the rivalry and married Blazestone. Wait, so does that mean there's a possibility Blazestone and Downburst had children? Meaning there could be another super child out there called Gibbs? Obviously Blazestone and Downburst both got killed by Syndrome, so Gibbs would be an orphan. A super orphan? But there's a possibility! Yes, there's a lot of speculation towards the end of this theory, but there is also a lot of evidence in favour of this theory, for the most part. Oh, and for those of you shouting at your screen, what about Violet's boyfriend Tony? I say, what about Violet's boyfriend Tony? You don't really think they're gonna last, do you? But I guess we'll find out, because The Incredibles 2 is coming out in 2019! Could you imagine the scenes if there was a super in The Incredibles 2 called Gibbs? I would literally break. That was a long video. Hope you enjoyed it. You probably did if you got this far. Please like and subscribe for videos like this every Thursday. And if you really enjoyed it, share this video. Like seriously, share the video, please.